Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Her Expat Life's YouTube channel. We are very excited to be chatting with you this Friday afternoon about the state of social security in the US as well as in Europe. So, in typical Friday fashion, technology seems to not be my friend this afternoon. And I'm having slight issues with my camera, but please bear with us because what is important is what we will be talking about today. So you can look at Natalia's beautiful face as we have this discussion, but stick around with us as we discuss some very, very important topics. What is the future of social security in the States, also in Europe, and how does this impact people who will be retiring in the next 10 to 15 to 20 years and beyond? So we are joined today by Natalia Ivanova, one of our partners at Her Expat Life. And Natalia is the founder and CEO of NewGen Wealth Creation. Natalia, before we kick off today's conversation, can you just tell us a little bit about what your company does?
Yes, it's an investment advisory firm. I'm registered with Puerto Rico and operate in the United States. The company itself is helping clients with financial plans, with investment planning, with tax strategies, right? So we talk about the entire structure of the financial situation for a person. So I work with young entrepreneurs who just in the process of building, and that's how we're a little bit different from a traditional advisory firms because we focus not only high net worth individuals, but also on the people who just starting and building the wealth from the beginning, from the scratch. And the focus obviously is a little bit different there. So my main focus is working with people and helping them to make sure that they make their decision informed when it comes to their big life events.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. And I've had actually the privilege of having a chat with you about my personal finances and getting my life in order. And I can truly say that from my personal experience, you are a financial advisor that genuinely cares about your customers. And it's not just the profits and what's coming into your bank account. There's a general sense of really wanting to help people. So you have my personal testimonial. Natalia is amazing. And I'm so glad that you are with us today.
Thank you.
Um, okay, so social security. We're going to talk about this in two kinds of brackets because the system in the US is quite different to the system in Europe, right? So on my end, I didn't know very much about the social security system, even though I'm currently living in Spain and paying into it. So I had to do some homework. So I think a good starting point would be to look at the history of social security. Where did the system come from? I think that's the first point that we will look at. How long has it been around for? Where did it come from? And what was the whole point of it? So I'll start us off with the origins and developments of Social Security in the States. Okay, so in 1935, the Social Security Act was signed into law by President Franklin D. Roosevelt as part of the New Deal. It was designed to provide financial security to the elderly, unemployed, and disadvantaged through various social insurance and welfare programs. In 1937, the first taxes were collected and the first one time lump sum payments were made. In the 40s, regular ongoing monthly benefits started, and in the 50s and 60s, coverage was expanded to include dependents and survivors, and disability insurance was also added. In 1972, automatic cost of living adjustments, which are called COLAs or COLAs, were introduced to keep benefits in line with inflation. Okay, so take us to the current structure. So, Social Security in the States is funded through payroll taxes under the Federal Insurance Contributions Act. It provides benefits to retirees, disabled individuals, and survivors of deceased workers, and it is managed by the Social Security Administration. It is one of the largest government programs in the world. Okay, so that's just a little bit of a background. Where did it come from? When did it first kick into place? So, Natalia, can you give us some insight? So, let's chat a little bit about the current social security landscape in the
Mhm.
States. What is it looking like now, and where are the concerns coming from?
So let me just kind of back into what you were describing the history and a little
Yeah,
bit more in detail speak on a few things. So it's very
perfect.
important to know that Social Security was initially created as a supplemental income, not
Mm,
something people should rely. And that's very important because a lot of Americans in the United States do rely, and I think according to the American Association of Retirement Plans, 50% of American retirees do rely on Social Security benefits, and 90 of them believe that it's extremely important in their financial picture overall, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's
Mm-hmm.
a little mismatch, I think, between people's expectation of the plan, and maybe because of lack of understanding it very well, versus what it was made for originally.
Mm-hmm.
So the way it works, also, it's a little bit more, like you mentioned very well, that it's payroll tax deductions.
Yeah.
The rate right now is 12.4%, and it's combined rate for both employees and employers, right? So
Yeah.
it's split between them in half. If you
Mm-hmm.
are self-employed, you pay full 12.4% to Social
Mm-hmm.
Security, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the way the money is going in process too, because I had a few clients a long time ago arguing with me that they have Social Security account. And I'm like, no, it's a trust fund. It's not something your personal account. It's a pool of money that directed, right? So every dollar that you pay towards Social Security benefits, 85% of every 5 cents of that $1 goes to the Social Security trust, and
Mm-hmm.
15 cents goes to the disability benefits. Um, so when you log in, there is a way to log in and review your estimate benefit, but it's not a personal account. It's nothing that, personally for you. So if there's adjustments happening to Social Security in general, you will be affected. And that's
Mm-hmm.
very important. That's the concern. I think that started very recently, about 4 months ago. We saw this first publications, the report that came out from the Social Security Trustee Board. They basically said that the Social Security benefits will run low by 2035. And
Mm-hmm.
we saw so many news just, flashing. Again, if you continue to read the article, it says basically that in 2035, it will not go down and disappear. It's just saying
Yeah.
that it will not be able to pay full 100% of the benefit. It will only be
Mm-hmm.
able to pay 83% of the benefit to the people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it definitely affects all of us, our
Mm-hmm.
generation especially, because
Absolutely.
it's a little bit over 10 years from now when this
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think a fair thing to look at, because obviously, when people hear about the governments making cuts and adjustments to things like this, the knee-jerk reaction is to be like, "Oh, the government is against us. They're not working for us. They're doing something." There's a lot of conspiracies around these things. But if we try to just look at it objectively for a moment, so I think there are a few factors that we really need to consider. The first thing is the demographic changes that have happened and that are happening and will continue to happen in society from the 60s, 70s, right until now. I mean, we have an aging population that, people are living longer because of medical advancements. There are lower birth rates. There are fewer workers contributing to the system, more people dependent on the system. So just from a purely logical perspective, the system has more dependence and less people putting into it. So something's got to give, right? Um,
Absolutely.
and I know in countries like France in particular, they've talked about, changing the retirement age, making, the minimum retirement age, increasing that from, I believe, like 65 to 67, I believe, in France in particular. And
Uh-huh.
people were outraged by that. But, you know, from a logistical perspective, from a government perspective, like how something has to give. The system has to somewhat change. So, I'm all for criticism when it's due, but in this case, I think there are some points that need to be discussed. And we're a generation, especially millennials. We're having less kids than historically. Our parents and grandparents are living longer. We're living longer, so just from that perspective, I think it's important to remember that the demographic shift, I think from how I've understood it, is really a big thing that is impacting this. What are your thoughts on the reasons why these changes are taking place?
So you kind of hit all of the important factors. The demographical factor is huge because right now we
Mm,
have a high population of seniors, And you're absolutely right. We just don't produce enough children
Mm.
in Europe and in the United States.
Yeah.
It's the birth rate is so low, and it's shocking to me how we're not focusing on it, how we're not making some. Canada is a great example about this. They did a couple years ago, not a couple years ago, probably 10 years ago. I'm saying a couple years. 10 years ago, they implemented this. They already understood that they have a huge demographical issue. There is not enough children born in order for them to keep running as a country. And they introduced the interesting immigration, not law, but a program, invite entrepreneurs, young families that don't have any medical issues. They were very specific about, they didn't really focus much on the financial state of the person, but they focused a lot on, you have to be healthy to come to our country. And then if you're a specialist, you can find a job, and we want you to stay, become a Canadian and grow a family here, basically. And I think we are United States, even though we don't admit that for some reason, and a lot of people push it, but even if we hear, the Elon Musk, I really like his interview one day in Network. Someone asked him, why do you have 12 children? Why so many children, right? And he was saying, did you guys look at the demographic? It's scary. It's scary.
Yeah.
So I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, what everyone's supposed to do, because if you look at the numbers, it is horrifying, and it is true. And I don't know why we're not talking about this as much. So one of the things naturally Social Security will run into issues is just it's unavoidable. In 1983, we actually already had Social Security deficit, and they did exactly what in France. They changed from 65 to 67 the retirement age. The way it works in the United States, particularly if they have any issues with Social Security getting to that point, which I'm sure we will hear something between now and 2035, something will have to happen. Usually Congress has to make some choices and make voting and adjust something. The most common things that they will be doing, or the very known things to adjust Social Security benefits, is to raise the retirement age, is to increase the tax payroll amount, right? And I believe another one is reduce the benefits. So right now, what we were talking about 2035, right? That now they will be able to pay only 83%. So naturally, that will happen. The fact that it will stay like this, or they will make some adjustments, we don't know. But I think for us, for our generation, anyone who have not already applied for Social Security, it's very important to realize that the way we look at Social Security might not look the same at the point when we meet it and we need to apply for it and we need to use it. And for my career, it's challenging because when I work with clients and we build the future forecasts for their cash flow, we implement Social Security, we supplement all of their picture. And then for me now, I understand that I have to be way more conservative. I don't want to use all 100% of it because I don't know how it will be, and I don't want them to rely on it. And it's a challenge because, again, a lot of Americans do want to rely on Social Security. Fortunately, I think when we meet it, it will look very differently from what it looks right now.
Yeah, interesting perspective. And I've been saying this amongst friends and people I've been chatting to for a while, on many fronts, but especially from a financial perspective. I think we need to stop imagining that we're going to age the way our grandparents aged and that our reality is going to reflect what their reality is. I think when we reach our old age, and generations after us, I think things are going to look quite different. Who knows how far technology will get? Who knows how long we're going to live until? Who knows how long our retirement is going to be? Who knows what the structures will be in place at that point in time to take care of us? So I think we're kind of heading into almost new territory, like we're not really sure what retirement is going to look like in terms of how much support we will have from the government and also how long our retirement years will be. So that takes me to a very important point. Many factors in this conversation are out of our control, right? We don't really know. A lot of people don't even, it's very difficult to predict what the future outcome will be. But what is within somebody's control? So imagine you're speaking to, I don't know, a young female between the ages of like 30 and 40 who's really panicked about, the social security system and is asking, what can I do to make sure I'm okay? So what would your advice be?
I think for me, to the only advice that I will give strongly to a person is to plan and look at what's
Mhm.
happening right now to retirees. I don't
Mhm.
know how many such like news you have seen, but for me personally, when I watch news and they show something about the seniors and how seniors survive nowadays, it's
Yeah,
horrible. It's horrifying.
it is
I just a
horrifying.
couple of days ago on CNN, I listened to this interview of a woman who she had a condo. She was living, I believe it was in Miami. She
Mhm.
had a condo. She lived in the condo. She was completely retired. And then, the HOA, all the fees and costs to keep the condo running was too high. She couldn't afford it. She was already started to work, and she still couldn't afford all of the cost of living. She
Mhm.
had to sell it. She found two other girlfriends her age who sold their condos because they had exactly the same thing. They couldn't pay the bills. They just didn't have
Yeah.
enough money, and they bought a house, three of them together, and now they are roommates.
Mhm.
So these are people in retirement who become roommates. This is when you want to have your space and retire and be calm and not stress out, right? We work our
Yeah.
entire life to make sure that we don't have to worry about this stuff at that age. And
Mhm.
so when I look at this, it's very scary. And I think for a young person seeing all of this is just understanding a little bit more and spending time to understand like social security. Okay, I'm really stressed about it. I rely on it. I want to rely on it. How much you actually the numbers? The maximum benefit in US, actually in Europe, it's way better. In the
Yeah.
US, over $3,000, so it's $3,000 ish. The maximum benefit, right? The
Mhm.
average benefit as of May 2015, when I was writing the newsletter, I was looking it up. It was $800 or something like this,
Wow.
$600 a month. So it's total to annual $8,000 of income.
Wow.
How can you survive on $8,000? So you
Impossible.
just from those numbers, anyone can understand that. Okay, this is not something that will retire me. Like
No, no way.
we talking about when we talk how much person needs to have a very comfortable retirement, and we talk about now it's not even 1 million; it's close to 2 million to
Yeah.
have comfortable retirement, and we're talking about 8,000 a year. Um,
Yeah.
so so that's where the big issue is our expectations of this thing, the social security and
Mm.
the pension plan. We should not look at it as a pension plan. We should look at it as a supplement. Our
Mm.
401ks, our solo 401ks, our IRAs, those are the ones that you should be building from very early age. Obviously, your taxable assets.
Mhm.
It's very important to build your taxable assets until 59 and a half. That's your strong bucket that you will be able to use. And after 59 and a half, those retirement buckets, right? The 401k, the pension
Mhm.
plans that you do it yourself, not the government, that's some trust fund. Um,
Yeah.
and I think this is the only thing is that it's nobody will take care of you but you, and you have to
Yes.
understand it. And I think it's the same in Europe, but in Europe, that maximum benefit is
It's
4,000.
better. Yeah. Yeah.
So for a couple, it's actually, it's a good annual income for a couple if it's two
Yeah.
income earners. So at least there's that there. But then again, the cost of living is rising just the same highly in Europe and in US. So it's just a matter
Absolutely.
of time when it's not enough.
Yeah, I think the difference is because like I personally I live in Spain. I'm not originally from Spain, but I've been here for 6 years. And when you were talking about the way that a lot of the elderly are living in the States, it's really, really dire.
Mhm.
It's quite sad actually to hear about that. I must say here in Europe, particularly in Spain, the elderly at the moment, I think, have a pretty decent quality of life. And I would say that the government does take care of them. But if you want to just again look at the demographics, like Spain and Italy and Portugal in particular have a very, very big elderly population. We're talking about many, 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 many people who are on that system. And again, if you look at the birth rates, they are also quite low in these countries. So to look at how in Spain and in Europe, to look at how the elderly are benefiting from the system right now, I think that would be a false crutch to think that that is going to be the case in Europe. I think it's more going to be along the lines of what's happening in the US is going to be more a reality in terms of what will be available, just purely from a demographics perspective here. So, yeah, I think that's the slight difference that I'm picking up. I think America's already seeing that, like losing that support from the system, whereas I think maybe Europe is still in a bit of a bubble. But I don't see that lasting very long.
I think some countries, UK, for example, they've been a little bit more proactive. They don't
Mm.
want to get to that point. I think in 2014, UK did the adjustments to their social security. So just to back up a little bit, in Europe, for everyone who doesn't know, each country, even though it's
Yes.
European Union has kind of the social security system that they try to implement at some point, maybe that will work between all of the countries. But technically, each country has its own social security, and that's what people should rely on. So in
Yes.
UK, they did adjustments to their system, I believe, in 2014, and they basically changed that benefit to a fixed amount, right?
Hmm.
They can control because when it's a fixed amount, it's more controllable versus when it's like maximum versus the average and stuff like this. Every country has also different way of how they calculate it, and that's also important. So in US, for example, you get to the maximum benefit if you have a specific income, so it should be a higher income. On top of
Yeah.
that, it has to be 10 years of your work history with that kind of income. And then
Yeah.
when you still work, they still look and calculate specific last 3 years of your income. So it's very tactical the way they calculate it, and you can very easily have most of your life has a very project as you will have the best benefit out there, the max of it, and then the
Yeah.
last 3 years of your work, that if something goes wrong, that can crumble very easily according to the
Hmm.
calculation. So you have to be very strategic before you decide to retire, years in advance, to plan to make sure you keep that maximum especially when you're close to the retirement.
Hmm. Okay, so I think let's move on to some tips that people can take home with them. And Natalia, the way I'm going to structure this is almost by age groups, because obviously the closer you are to retirement, your whole strategy around things will be a bit different, right? So imagine
Mhm.
we're talking about someone in their early 20s, maybe 20 to 26, who is like, oh, I'm working, I'm earning money, finally this thing of retirement seems like something that's so far away. Like, what would be your advice for that age group? 21 to around 26. What should they be thinking about?
Time will pass like crazy. You will get
Yeah.
there sooner than you believe or think.
Mhm.
You also, young people do have this idea of, they will get married, they will have so many big adjustments, they can rely on that. And I will not suggest to rely on anything unless
Mhm.
it's yours and you build it. Um, for any young person, I just say, work on your income, and then invest and invest again in your taxable assets and in your retirement assets. Have all of this build up, social security, whatever it will look like. Because for you,
Mhm.
especially, you will not know how it looks like for many years ahead of us, right? Whatever it will look like, it will be supplement. If it will be good, it will be great supplement. If it will be not good, you don't care because you already built your buckets. And I think it's just constantly investing and planning and saving extremely important if you want to have independence, freedom, and less
Mhm.
stress. Just
Mhm.
absolutely less stress when you have that cushion behind you as your portfolio and investments.
Mhm. And someone who's maybe entering their 30s and they've realized, okay, maybe in my 20s, I was living my best life and not that focused on retirement, and the reality starts kicking in. What would be your advice for someone in their 30s who is now going, okay, I don't think I'm planning the way I should be?
Very similar, honestly. I'm
Mhm.
more, and you know a little bit more about it, but I am a more aggressive financial advisor when it comes to
Yeah.
investing, right? So I want to make sure that people not just sit on an index funds for 30, 40 years and wait to get to that 1 million. I really
Yeah.
want to be proactive with this. I'm immigrant myself. Like I had to be proactive to get where I am. And
Yeah.
it's just, and I suggest the same for my clients. And a lot of my clients are building wealth. So if you're in your 30s, it's the same process. You still have a lot of time before your retirement. And if you
Yeah.
dedicate next 10 years, dedicate next 10 years on building your portfolio, building your assets, building your system, wealth base, then the following decade will look very different. But if you don't, or if you just put money in the index fund and sit on it and kind of wait and don't do any tax strategy planning, that's where the problem run in. I think it's very important for people in their 30s because they run into so many life decisions: starting a family, buying a house, right? All of this, starting a business, that's very common right now. If you do all of those things, there's tons of different strategies that you can use for entrepreneurs, for people who start their business. They can utilize like such things as a Roth 401k or regular solo 401k. If you're self-employed, your contributions are way higher than of these people who work for a company. So there's you have to spend time to organize your finances. It's not a quick overnight thing, nothing like this. But that's what I'm saying. If you dedicate 5 to 10 years on the organizing and building that wealth base, the following decade will look very differently. So being in 30s, it's not old. It's not, you still have plenty of time. It's just something that, you kind of have to make a decision and act right now. While in your 20s, you have time to think and make sure you do it right. You're still just getting your income to get to the level that you want it to be. You have a little bit more wiggle room. Still, I strongly suggest to start investing, obviously, right, from my perspective. But for a person who is in 30s, even 40s, you have to start thinking to, if it's not organized and if you're not all set, start today, like start yesterday.
And then let's take into the age group of maybe later 40s, early 50s, where maybe someone has realized that, maybe they had all the right intentions of planning for retirement, but they looking at the numbers, looking at the cost of living, going, oof, I'm not where I should be. And feeling that sense of doom and gloom. What would you say to someone who can kind of see retirement over the horizon and doesn't feel prepared?
I will say the cliche word that all financial advisors says, it depends, because it depends, right? It depends on the situation, where you are at, right? How much you already saved, what are your investments, what are you invested in, how much assets you have, do you have a mortgage, or you already paid off your property, right? All of those different things, like what is your income right now? All of these things do matter significantly, because at this point, you don't have a lot of time to plan, because you are maybe a decade away from your retirement, right? Or maybe you're 5 years away, or maybe it's a couple of years and you've retired, right? So your situation at this point is very critical the way it is. If your situation is not in a good place, I think the way I say for people like this, when I meet with them, with clients, you kind of have to still give some time, like 5 to 10 years, to build it up, even though it's late to the game. But you're still young. If you have health, if your health is okay and you can continue to work, you just have to dedicate time and help yourself. Because again, if you don't help yourself, it's not much out there that will, we don't have that system to support people. That's why we have such a crazy amount of poverty happening in the senior years, retirees, right? So it's you kind of have to play that catch-up game, and unfortunately, I don't think you can avoid something like this. You kind of have to do it. If your situation is more or less good, then there is plenty of ways to probably reorganize and improve your situation, and make your portfolio and make your assets work for you again. It just depends on where you are at. But when you're already at that age, 55 plus, up until retirement, and especially if you want to retire anytime soon, you definitely need to understand where you're at. You definitely need to run your cash flow forecast and know exactly, right now, if you keep everything as it is, you're doing exactly what you're doing every day, when you will run out of money. And that's what we do. We show people when it happens. And then, okay, if I run out in that age, like obviously I think I still will be alive and everything will be good with me. Like, what can we do to improve it? And then we start to think, okay, maybe we need to be a little bit more aggressive with your investments. Maybe we need to downsize. Maybe we need to, think of like some work adjustments for the next 5 years at least. So all of those things we play around and we see what makes sense for the client. But again, it's unfortunately, when it comes to wealth management and financial planning, it's really tailored to the person. Into their situation. And for a person who lives, in New York City and someone who owns a land and property in Ohio, it's very different financial plans. It depends on a lot of different things, right? A lot of people in the United States, I came across a lot of those clients who, they work their entire life here and they retire in Thailand and Spain. So they plan, they move to those countries and they want to make sure they organize everything. So the assets here basically work with them and make them a good retirement in countries where it's more affordable.
Okay, so it's difficult to give a one-size-fits-all kind of sense of advice, but I think a good exercise or a good practice, and maybe you can give people some tips on how they would do this, is to how would someone calculate how much they would need for retirement, right? So based on inflation and based on cost of living rising, what is a good way? Are there tools out there? How can we figure out, just to put it into perspective, how much we will need for retirement individually?
There are a lot of tools out there. There is a lot of retirement tools that even free, you can set it up. And I think the catch with those free tools is that whatever the platform it is, and you can Google, like, I want the retirement plan, build retirement plan for free, right? You Google that, you will see like Wellswell, I think one of the companies that I remember. The only catch with those companies is that when you finish building your retirement plan, they might send you a financial advisor to talk to you after that. And I know that we all get annoyed when someone reaches out to us like this, but I also suggest you will not lose anything from having a conversation. And if that's a good specialist, it might be not, you never know. But if it's a good specialist, take advantage of that time. They calling you on their time. You're not paying for anything. Ask tons of questions about your situation and get as much information as you can from that consultation. I think that's what people don't really, it's such a bad cliche of financial advisors in the United States, at least. I don't know how it's in Europe. But take advantage of those free consultations, because a lot of people will tell you a lot of good stuff that you can implement for yourself. When it comes to, it's hard to answer your question of how you can build it yourself. You do need, I think, some sort of platform. You can technically build some stuff in the Excel. However, there are a lot of factors that affect that journey, right? So the cash flow forecast, when we build it, we take into account all the income, all of the assets, all the expenses, all the taxation, right? All your contributions and savings and stuff. We project, and that's something you cannot do in Excel. So the rest of it you can do. And then when it comes to projection of investments, we take each investment in your portfolio, we take their average return that we know for the specific style and sector and industry, right? So it's way more tailored rather than just say, the markets like S&P 500 over the past 10 years was up 12%. Unfortunately, when you just build that, spreadsheet of your money coming in the end of the year, the 10%, that number, one second. For some reason, give me 1 second, sorry.
No worries. Absolutely no worries. For those listening at home, this is a great time to drop some questions in the chat. So if you have some questions for Natalia or for myself, please feel free to let us know your thoughts. Also, if you have any suggestions for future videos, future topics, drop it all in the chat. And we want to hear from you. Natalia, you're back with us, yeah?
I'm back. Sorry, for some reason my electricity went off, so my laptop for some reason may die. If I disappeared, I apologize for this.
Don't worry.
But so basically what I was saying, all of those projections, that's hard. You cannot put that in your Excel spreadsheet, right? Unless you go and research each sector of each position that you have in your portfolio. Another thing is that we don't know how the markets perform, right? Maybe next decade, it will be really bad performance of the market. Maybe economy will be bad. Maybe there will be third world war. We don't know what will happen. When we run the portfolio, when we run the financial plans for people in the cash flow, what we do, we put there in their situation, including their investments and their overall asset situation. And we run what we often say Monte Carlo analysis. It's the analysis when we take thousands of different scenarios, from market being really bad to market being really good.
Yeah.
And we get you that percentage of success rate. That the number that the most accurate that can tell you will you get to the retirement successfully or not. Because in that particular case, the system basically calculates how many chances of success you have if
Wow.
everything goes crazy, good or bad. And
Yeah.
if you have the high number in 90s, that means you pretty good. Nothing really can ruin you, your position. But if you have a lower number there, then if something happens external that you cannot control, you suddenly cannot afford retirement, or you run out of money way sooner than you expected.
Okay, Natalia. So if we need to wrap up today and our viewers take home just one nugget or one piece of advice, one thought that you'd like everybody to go home with, can you just tell us what one thing do you want everybody to take away from today's chat?
Understand what Social Security is. Take time to understand if you can rely on it or not. And I think for everyone who has not applied for Social Security, also have that realization that it might not be the way it is for your friends or your parents or other people who already applied for it. And plan for it. Plan with your own stuff, like your own retirement plans. Make sure that you prepare for your retirement and don't count on any external things, because unfortunately that can hurt us later in life. And the more time we lose, that's the only asset we cannot return. Once we lost time, we lost it. So use time, and all you need in building wealth is time.
Yeah, really, really good statement to end today's chat off with. The only asset we cannot get back is time, so use it wisely. And just to reiterate, like for those of us who are no longer in our 20s, looking back, like your 20s is a really great time to figure out who you are and find your way around the world. But it is also a really good time to start educating yourself on investing and educating yourself on all of the things that it means to be financially free. So yeah, you're never too young. It's never a bad time to start. Natalia, it's been wonderful chatting with you today, as always. Thank you so much for your insights. Please let people know how they can reach out to you. How can people get in touch?
If you go to wncwealth.com, that's my website, you can find a lot of information, useful articles there. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram, NewGen Wealth Creation. And on Instagram and LinkedIn, I share just tips about financial planning, tax tips, and that's something that you can just use for yourself for education. But you also feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I will be happy to chat and help the way I can.
Just a reminder to everybody at home, her Expat Life is a global boutique agency focused on helping female expats and entrepreneurs advance their global lifestyles. Natalia is part of our membership program. She is one of our partners. So for those of you who have joined our membership program, you can get discounts from Natalia's services and a host of other partners that we are in work with, or that we work with. So please make sure to visit our website, herexpatlife.com, click on the membership tab, join and enjoy all of the benefits from Natalia and other experts in their field. And please follow us on Instagram. Please follow us on TikTok. Stay in touch and feel free to let us know any topics you'd like us to cover in the future. We are here to inform, to help, and to educate everybody, especially females who have a global lifestyle. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for your patience with my technical issues and my technology, my camera signing out early on this Friday, deciding it is no longer going to work. But we really do hope that the information that we gave you today helps you feel empowered and makes you just understand the importance of not relying on the system. And like Natalia said, that no one's going to take care of you except yourself. So empower yourself, educate yourself, and reach out to people like Natalia who can give you guidance if you're feeling a little lost. Natalia, thank you so much, and we will definitely have you back soon.
Thank you, Lexia. Always pleasure.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.